Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine being 10 years old. You're sitting at the kitchen table, and your parents hand you a letter. They cannot read it, but they're smiling, hoping it is good news. But as you read the words, your heart sinks. It is an eviction notice. You have 30 days to leave your home. This is the reality for millions of children who act as the bridge between their families and the world. Today, we're going to listen to Leo's story. You will learn how a child carries an adult burden, how real-life problems are solved, and the powerful English vocabulary used to navigate them.
Leo was 10 years old, but at home he felt much older. Every afternoon after school, his real job began. While his friends played soccer in the park, Leo sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers. His parents, Clara and Miguel, worked long hours at a local factory. They were incredibly hard-working, but their English was limited to basic greetings and work phrases. Because Leo's English was perfect, he became the voice of the family. "Leo, can you look over this?" his mother would ask, handing him a utility bill. "Leo, please call back the dentist," his father would say, pointing at a voicemail notification. Leo never complained. He liked being the golden child who could help his family. He learned to fill out medical forms, translate teacher notes, and explain official letters. His parents looked at him with so much pride and trust. They truly believed that as long as Leo was there, nothing could go wrong. But carrying that trust was exhausting for a young boy. Whenever the phone rang, Leo's stomach tightened. He always worried that he would not understand a word or that he would make a mistake. If he misspelled a name or misunderstood a date, it could cause a major problem for his parents. One Tuesday evening, Leo was finishing his homework when the front door opened. His father walked in, holding a large white envelope with an official blue logo. Miguel was smiling, assuming it was a routine update or good news about their apartment. He handed it to Leo. "Read this for us, son," Miguel said proudly.
Leo took the envelope from his father's hands. The paper felt heavy and cold. In the top left corner, a bold blue logo caught his eye: City Housing Authority. His mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron, and stood next to his father. They both watched Leo with eager, hopeful smiles. Leo carefully tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter. His eyes scanned the page, searching for familiar words among the dense paragraphs. Then his heart stopped. At the top of the page, printed in bold capital letters, were the words "Notice to quit and vacate." Leo did not know the word vacate, but his eyes quickly skipped to the next line. "You are hereby notified to move out of the premises within 30 days. The word eviction stood out like a flashing red light. Leo looked up at his parents. They were still smiling, waiting for him to tell them what it meant. His father patted him on the shoulder, encouraging him to speak. Leo felt a sudden sharp pain in his chest, and his throat went completely dry. He realized that a single sentence from his mouth could destroy his parents' peace. They loved this small apartment. It was the only safe place they knew in this new country. If he told them the truth right now, his mother would cry and his father would panic. Leo swallowed hard and looked back down at the paper, trying to hide his shaking hands. "What does it say, Leo?" asked his mother gently in her native language. Leo forced a small, fake smile onto his face. "It is just a routine update from the city," Leo lied quietly. Leo spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, the phrase "notice to quit" burning in his mind. The next morning, his parents looked at him with total trust, completely unaware of the crisis. After breakfast, Leo knew he could not keep the secret any longer. He pulled his mother and father to the kitchen table and laid the paper between them. "Mom, Dad, I need to explain the letter again," Leo started, his voice cracking slightly. He tried to translate the formal legal sentences into his heritage language, but he immediately hit a wall. How could he explain breach of contract or premises when he barely understood them in English? He lacked the complex words in his native tongue to explain that their landlord was accusing them of breaking a rule. We have to leave the apartment," Leo finally blurted out, using the simplest words he could find. "The letter says we have 30 days to move out." The transformation on his parents' faces was instant and heartbreaking. His mother's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes widening with immediate panic. His father's proud posture collapsed, his face turning pale as he stared at the paper as if he could force himself to read it. Miguel began asking rapid, desperate questions that Leo could not answer. Leo sat there, feeling completely helpless, caught in the painful gap between two languages. He knew exactly what the danger was, but he did not have the words to bridge the gap. For the first time, Leo realized that speaking two languages did not make him powerful. It just made him lonely. The stress of the eviction notice hung over the apartment like a heavy fog. While his parents desperately tried to figure out what to do, a new problem arrived. Leo's mother, Clara, developed a sharp, persistent cough. At first, she dismissed it, wrapping a scarf tighter around her neck and working extra shifts. But as the days passed, the cough grew deeper, keeping a whole family awake at night. Leo begged his father to take her to a clinic, but Miguel shook his head. They could not afford a private doctor, and the fear of navigating a hospital without English was terrifying. Then, on a rainy Friday evening, the crisis reached a breaking point. Clara stood up from the dinner table, gasped for air, and suddenly collapsed onto the living room rug. Miguel dropped to his knees, crying out her name in a panic, completely helpless. Leo didn't hesitate. He grabbed his father's cell phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, Leo forced his voice to remain steady despite the tears streaming down his face. "Emergency! My mother just collapsed," Leo said, his English clear and precise. "She has been coughing for weeks, and now she isn't breathing properly." The operator asked for their address, their apartment number, and Clara's medical history. Leo answered every question instantly, translating his father's frantic explanations from the floor. Within 10 minutes, the loud sirens echoed down the street, and flashing red lights illuminated the apartment walls. As the paramedics rushed into the room with a stretcher, Leo stood between them and his terrified father. He was only 10 years old, but he was the only bridge to saving his mother's life. The bright fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway made Leo's eyes ache. He sat in a plastic chair in room 304, holding his father's trembling hand. In the bed, his mother lay pale and weak, an oxygen mask covering her face. The heavy door opened, and a doctor walked in holding a clipboard. She looked at Clara, then at Miguel, and finally her eyes settled on Leo. "Is there an adult here who speaks English?" the doctor asked, looking fatigued. Miguel looked at Leo and nodded urgently, signaling his son to take over. "I speak English," Leo said, stepping forward and trying to sound brave. The doctor sighed, looking directly at the 10-year-old boy as she delivered the diagnosis. Your mother has acute bilateral pneumonia with severe pleural effusion, she explained rapidly. Her oxygen levels dropped dangerously low, and there is significant fluid buildup around her lungs. Leo stood frozen, his mind spinning as he tried to process the massive, terrifying words. She needs to stay in the hospital for aggressive intravenous antibiotics, the doctor continued. If the fluid does not drain, she may require a surgical procedure. Leo looked back at his father, whose eyes were wide with fear, silently begging for an explanation. The doctor stopped talking and waited for Leo to translate, expecting a child to pass on this critical medical information. Leo felt the crushing weight of the world drop onto his small shoulders once again. He knew the words were dangerous, and he had to decide exactly how to say them. Leo looked at his father's pale, anxious face, and then down at his mother in the hospital bed. He knew that if he used the literal words for fluid in the lungs or surgery, Miguel might completely break down. Miguel was already exhausted from the eviction threat. This news could break him. Leo swallowed the lump in his throat and chose his words with extreme care. "Dad, the doctor says Mom has a very severe case of pneumonia," Leo explained in his native language. "Her lungs are very weak right now, which is why she needs to stay here." Miguel leaned forward, his hands gripping Leo's arms. "But is she going to be okay, Leo? What else did the doctor say?" Leo forced his voice to remain calm and reassuring, softening the doctor's harsh medical warnings. "They are giving her very strong medicine through an IV," Leo lied slightly, omitting the part about potential surgery. "The doctors are going to watch her closely every hour to make sure the medicine works." Miguel let out a long, shaky breath, nodding his head as tears of relief filled his eyes. He reached out and wrapped Leo in a tight, desperate hug, thanking him for being so smart. Leo hugged his father back, but his heart felt heavier than ever. He had successfully protected his father's emotions, but now he was entirely alone with the terrifying truth. He was a 10-year-old boy carrying a secret medical diagnosis, praying that the surgery would not be necessary. The playground at Leo's school was filled with the sounds of shouting, laughter, and bouncing basketballs. It was recess, the one time of day when every 10-year-old was supposed to be completely free. But Leo was not playing. Instead, he was crouched behind the tall steel bleachers, shivering slightly in the chilly wind. In his trembling hands, he held his father's old smartphone, his thumb hovering over the screen. He had stolen away from the supervisor's view, using this precious 30-minute break to do something desperate. He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, a list of free legal aid clinics he had searched for in the school library. Leo dialed the first number, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Legal Aid Society, how can I help you?" a crisp, professional voice answered. Leo took a deep breath, trying to make his high-pitched voice sound as mature as possible. "Hello, my name is Leo, and my family received a notice to quit," he said, using the exact words from the letter. "We have 30 days to leave, but my mom is very sick in the hospital, and we have nowhere to go." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Leo, how old are you? Is there a parent or guardian I can speak to?" the receptionist asked, sounding surprised. "My parents don't speak English," Leo explained, his voice cracking with urgency. "Please, I just need to know how to appeal this, or if we can get an extension." He spent the rest of recess frantically writing down words like pro bono and tenant rights, fighting a legal battle before the bell rang.
The next day at the hospital, Leo sat by his mother's bed, his face pale and eyes heavy with dark circles. He had the legal notes from recess stuffed in his pocket and the doctor's medical warnings heavy in his mind. When the heavy door opened, a woman in a professional blazer walked in, accompanied by a new doctor. "Hello, I'm Sarah, a hospital social worker," she said gently, looking at Miguel and then at Leo. The doctor began to explain that Clara's fluid levels were not improving and they needed to discuss the surgical procedure. Automatically, Leo stood up, opened his mouth, and prepared to translate the terrifying update to his father. But Sarah noticed the tight clenching of Leo's small fists and the desperate, exhausted look in his eyes. She gently stepped between Leo and his father, placing a warm, reassuring hand on Leo's shoulder. "Wait a moment," Sarah said softly to the doctor before looking down at Leo. "Leo, you don't have to do this anymore. We have a certified medical interpreter on the phone right now." She pointed to a speakerphone on the wall, where a friendly voice greeted Miguel in his native language. Hearing his own language spoken perfectly by an adult, Miguel's eyes widened, and he immediately began to speak to the machine. Sarah looked at Leo, her eyes full of deep empathy. "Leo, you have been so brave," she whispered. "But this is an adult problem. This is not your job." The words hit Leo like a physical wave. The heavy armor he had worn for weeks suddenly shattered, and the immense bottled-up pressure finally gave way. Leo buried his face in his hands and sobbed, letting the tears wash away the crushing weight of the world. With the medical interpreter handling the hospital updates, a massive weight lifted from Leo's chest. For the first time in weeks, he could simply sit by his mother's bed and hold her hand, rather than analyzing the doctor's expressions. But the eviction notice was still waiting for them at home, and the 30-day deadline was creeping closer. The next morning, Sarah, the social worker, walked into room 304 with a bright smile and a folder of documents. She wasn't alone. She had brought a community legal advocate named Carlos, who spoke Leo's heritage language fluently. Carlos sat down with Miguel and Clara, explaining their tenant rights and the legal protections available to tenants during a medical crisis. Leo watched from the corner of the room, his mouth slightly open in amazement as Carlos used all the complex words he had struggled to understand. "We are going to file an emergency appeal," Carlos explained to Miguel, who nodded with profound gratitude in his eyes. "The landlord cannot legally evict you while your wife is undergoing critical hospital treatment." Leo reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled piece of paper covered in his messy handwriting from recess. He handed it to Carlos, who looked at the notes, then down at Leo with immense respect. "You did an incredible job protecting your family, Leo," Carlos said warmly. "But the adults have the wheel now." Leo let out a long, peaceful breath, realizing that asking for help wasn't a failure. It was the moment his childhood returned. 1 year later, the kitchen table looked entirely different. The stack of terrifying white envelopes was gone, replaced by a bowl of fresh fruit and Leo's 6th grade school books. Thanks to the legal advocates, the family had moved into a beautiful, stable apartment closer to the city center. Clara was fully recovered, her laughter once again filling the rooms, and Miguel's proud posture had returned. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the front door opened as Miguel walked in with a bag of groceries. He pulled out a new document,
But this time, he didn't hand it to Leo with an anxious expression. Instead, Miguel sat down, opened a translation app on his phone, and began reading the English words line by line. He looked up at Leo and smiled, showing off a certificate from his new weekend English class. Leo smiled back, feeling a profound sense of peace. He was no longer the administrative head of the household. He was just a son. His childhood had returned, but his experience had left a deep impression on him. He had discovered the incredible power of language and the vital importance of community support systems. He knew exactly what he wanted to be when he grew up, a professional, certified interpreter who could stand in hospitals and courtrooms to help families just like his. He wanted to make sure no 10-year-old child ever had to carry the weight of the world alone. Leo zipped up his backpack, grabbed his soccer ball, and looked at his parents. "I'm going to the park to play with my friends," Leo said. "Have fun, son," Miguel replied in clear English. Leo smiled, stepped out into the sunshine, and finally ran.
Leo's story reminds us that language is more than just words and grammar. It is a lifeline, a shield, and sometimes a heavy burden. But as Leo discovered, words also have the power to heal, to build communities, and to change futures. If you want to master the real-life English used in this story, you can find the complete vocabulary list and definitions right below in the description. Thank you for listening, for learning, and for being a part of our community today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories and language lessons. Until next time, keep learning and take care. I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.